Welcome to Generic Management 4, Business Communication with Chartwell Business College. Now, the unit standards are not always written in easy to understand language, but we're dealing with 119457, interpret and use information from texts. So, when we're looking at reading, we need to develop some reading skills, and we might have forgotten because it's such a long time that we've formally looked at reading skills as something we need to know more about. We read the newspaper, we read a book. So what we need to cover here is, in terms of this unit standard, what are the learning outcomes that you need to be able to do or demonstrate. So we need to be able to study and criticize texts produced for a range of purposes and audiences and contexts. We'll need to be able to identify and explain the values, the attitudes, and the assumptions in the texts. Now, we might be doing these quite automatically now, but we are going to have to break that transparency and consciously draw some inferences. And so that's what we will cover in the next few slides. We need to be able to assess the effects of content, language, and style on your or any reader's response in specific texts. Reading is a complex task. Some people like to read, while others read very little. But the more we read, the more competent a reader we become, because reading is a skill that gets better with practice. But what exactly is reading? Basically, it is something we do with books and other printed materials so that we can gather information. The faster we can read, the more information we can gather, as long as we understand what we read. There are different ways of reading, and we would use these different ways for different purposes and for different kinds of reading material. For example, we would read a legal contract in a lot more detail, slowly and very carefully, while we might read a storybook a lot faster, almost skimming over the page to just get the key ideas. Let's look at the types of reading that we could possibly do. Skimming. This involves searching for main ideas by reading the first and the last paragraphs, noting general keywords and how the document is structured, how it's put together. In order to skim, we need to decide what we want to know before we begin. For example, what is this all about? Does this article deal with a subject that I am researching? We read fast, looking for keywords from those questions that we've just asked. We do not read every word. We look at the opening paragraph of each chapter or section, then we read the first sentence in each paragraph. This is usually a summary of what that paragraph is all about. Scanning involves running your eyes down the page, looking for specific facts or keywords and phrases. When you are scanning, you are visualizing the word or the number and what it looks like so that you can easily spot it. Do not read every word, every number. Read fast. And when you find the information you want, then you slow down and examine it more closely. Now, when we use reading for studying purposes like what we're about today, we would read in a different way than if we were reading a fiction book for pleasure. So, study books are called non-fiction books. Most of the books learners are required to read when studying are textbooks. These books that summarize information about subject matter, so they are factual, they are non-fiction. To get the best out of a textbook, you should follow the following steps. Read the title page to find out what year the book was published and who the author was, the edition number, and who holds the copyright. Read the table of contents to get an overview of the organization of the book and the major topics discussed in it. There is a table of contents. If there is an appendix, which is normally at the back of the book, skim it to see what extra information it gives you. Check to see if there is a glossary at the end of the book, or if there are short glossaries in each chapter. Read the references. This is the list of the other books and resources that the author used to write the information in the book. Read the index. This is a list of keywords and a page number so that you can look up specific keywords in the book. Then have a look at these other parts of the book. The preface or foreword or introduction. This explains why the book was written. The chapter names and subheadings. These provide structure to the book. These are used to divide the material up to make it easier to read and study, so you don't have to read the whole book. They are often numbered, and a list of the headings can be found in the table of contents. Typographical aids. Textbooks often contain various typographical aids or arrangements or types of print that make it easy to pick out what is important to read and remember. These could include italic type, the slanted print, and this is often used to call attention to a particular word or phrase. Often, new terms are printed in italics in the sentence in which they are defined. Numbering refers to the numbering or lettering of facts and ideas in a paragraph. It is used to emphasize key ideas and to make them easy to find. Headings and subheadings divide the chapters into sections and label the major topic of each section. Basically, they tell in advance what each section will be about. When read in order, the headings and the subheadings form a brief outline of the chapter. When we read, we obviously need to understand what we are reading, but sometimes the message is in more than just the words. There are different textual features, the way the text is laid out or written, that also add to our understanding. And some of these are the use of words to cause a reaction. For example, if we read 9 people died, it doesn't cause as much emotion in us as the statement 9 people murdered by racist thugs on a killing spree. The second sentence is written deliberately to create an emotional response in us. The use of headings, for example, if the text has lots of headings and short paragraphs, it looks more impressive and organized than if it is written all in one long paragraph. It is easier to study from a book if it is laid out with lots of headings. Use short versus long sentences. Short sentences are easier to read, and this makes us feel more in control. Some people give up reading if the sentences are too long and complicated. Using simple language versus unknown words, or slang, jargon, or dialect. This has the same impact on us as long or short sentences, or long versus short sentences. If the text is full of difficult words, we might also give up and not try to read it. Well, slang refers to words usually used informally, like the use of cool by the younger generation to mean that's great, as opposed to its real meaning of nearly cold. Jargon words are words used by an industry that no one outside the industry understands. And dialect is the use of words in a particular way in a particular geographical area. For example, the Irish people would say someone is bold if they are cheeky. But outside of Ireland, bold only means brave. The use of sarcasm or irony, these are difficult concepts. Basically, sarcasm means to say something in a mocking or cynical way. For example, we might say, we love paying tax. We don't mean that we really love paying tax. In fact, we mean the opposite. We actually hate paying tax. This is sarcasm. If a text uses a lot of sarcasm, the reader may be confused by the message because if they don't know the author, they may not know for sure if he does or doesn't enjoy paying tax. Irony is more a fact of nature that is strange given the circumstances. For example, it is ironic that the poorest people are the most generous, whereas many wealthy people are not generous at all.